Hey there, guys. How's it going? Later this month, Mikey Garcia is going to be returning to the ring for the first time since his one-sided battering defeat that he got at the hands of Errol Spence Jr. You know, you guys might recall I reviewed that fight after it happened. I watched it live. It was on TV over here on ITV4, yeah. He got absolutely dominated in that fight, got schooled, lost pretty much every round, and really didn't even put up much of a fight, if I'm being honest. And he kind of didn't really go out on his shield. You guys might recall if you saw my post-fight review for that fight, I was very disappointed in Mikey Garcia because I thought Mikey Garcia had the boxing skills to at least make that a close fight. I wasn't actually sure, even though my last minute prediction I did pick Errol Spence, like that was my final prediction for that fight was Errol Spence by TKO, and I did do a video on that. I did do a final prediction video. It's still up. But in my first prediction video for that fight, I was kind of hinting to the fact that Mikey Garcia might have had the boxing skills and the fundamental skills to maybe capitalize on some of Errol Spence's flaws that he has. And kind of like how the Errol Spence Sean Porter fight went, I had a kind of a feeling that Mikey Garcia could have made his fight with Spence like that, where it's very close and competitive, but unfortunately he just wasn't able to. And yeah, I was disappointed, and I didn't really think he performed to the best of his ability personally. And he's going to be fighting Jessie Vargas. This is his next fight. Jessie Vargas is a fighter who I've always felt was somewhat underrated personally. And I am somewhat looking forward to this fight. I do think it's going to be a good fight. I do think it's going to be an entertaining fight. I think it will be somewhat competitive, although I do favour Mikey Garcia for one reason or another. I do think it's going to be a bit more competitive than advertised. Jessie Vargas is a fighter who I've always felt was very, very fundamentally good. Good boxing skills, good jab, good hand speed, decent power, nothing special, but he does all the basics well. And for as long as I've watched Jessie Vargas, I've always felt that he's the type of fighter who, if you underestimate him, he'll beat you. Um, for example, remember when he fought Saddam Ali? And going into that fight, a lot of people thought that Saddam Ali would win that fight. Saddam Ali was seen as a up and comer. He was undefeated, 22-0. Very sharp. Very accurate. Good power puncher. Very aggressive. Very fast. A lot of people thought he was going to beat Jessie Vargas, but Jessie Vargas completely destroyed him, took him apart and knocked him out, stopped him very efficiently, and I was quite impressed by that. So Jessie Vargas, yeah, he has shown some skills, he has shown some power. He's got good movement, fights very well on the outside, a bit of an ambush style. Will jump in with power shots. He's shown pretty good stamina to me. I mean, I remember when he fought Josecito Lopez a long time ago. That was, I believe, back in 2011, if I remember rightly. And yeah, he had a very close, tough fight with Josecito Lopez. I think he won by split decision. And he was very, he showed a lot of, spirit in that fight and whatnot. He also knocked out Vivian Harris early on in his career, back when Vivian Harris still had a bit left. So I've always felt that Jessie Vargas, whereas he's not really an elite fighter, he's a fighter who, is a little bit underrated. I mean, he almost took Timothy Bradley out in the 12th round. You guys remember that fight? I mean, he was losing to Timothy Bradley quite badly, and he came back in the 12th round and hurt him badly. And there was some controversy with the stoppage. There was some controversy. The people thought that the referee stopped the fight because the referee thought he heard the bell, when really it was just an accident. It wasn't the bell. And Bradley got a little bit of protection at the end of the round. So maybe Jessie Vargas might have been able to stop Bradley in that last 10 seconds. You never know. I mean, I doubt it, but you never know. He did beat Antonio DeMarco. He lost quite badly to Manny Pacquiao. I remember watching that fight live, but he did at least give Pacquiao some problems. It wasn't a complete battering, like one-sided beating. I mean, he got dropped early, and then he was able to sort of just old man his way through the fight and gave Pacquiao a few problems here and there, and what wasn't a terrible performance. But since that fight, it has to be said he hasn't really done anything noteworthy. I mean, he had a draw with Adrian Broner, and if you can't beat Adrian Broner, you're really not a world-class fighter. Although, to be fair, some people thought he won that fight. I'll need to watch that one again. I think from what I remember of it, I thought that Jessie Vargas won. But Adrian Broner probably did land, the more effective shots. It's just that I thought that, if I remember rightly, I thought that Vargas outboxed him and landed more shots. But I'll need to maybe watch that again at some point. But from what I remember, I thought Vargas won. And he had another draw against Thomas Delorme. I haven't actually seen that fight, but again, drawing to Thomas Delorme isn't really a good look. If he was going to win against somebody like Mikey Garcia, who is a world-class fighter, you'd expect him to be beating the likes of Thomas Delorme. He had a knockout win in his last fight against Humberto Soto, who was a good fighter in his day, but years past his prime. I remember Humberto Soto was going to fight Josh Taylor a couple of years ago. You remember that? I was going to be at that fight, but Humberto Soto pulled out and they replaced him. I still went to the fight, but they replaced him with Winston Campos, yeah. But yeah, Humberto Soto, knocking him out in his last fight, it really doesn't tell you a whole lot because, Jessie Vargas was just so much more closer to his prime. And Humberto Soto was pretty much a shot fighter by that point. Good fighter in his prime, but shot fighter, fighting at a division that doesn't suit him now. So don't really know how much to take from that. So there's an air of uncertainty, isn't there, going into this fight? He's going to be fighting Mikey Garcia. And we know, at least at this point, that Mikey Garcia, even though he's coming off a bad one-sided defeat to Errol Spence at welterweight, we know that Mikey Garcia does have very good boxing skills. We know he's fundamentally very good. We know he's a power puncher. We know he's got a tough chin, very difficult to stop. We know that Mikey Garcia is a survivor, in like against Errol Spence. Errol Spence was a much bigger puncher and a much bigger fighter, but Mikey Garcia, to his credit, was able to survive, and he was able to avoid taking, a lot of punishment, and lost the rounds badly, but didn't really get too badly hurt to the point where it took a lot out of him. I got the feeling watching it that Mikey Garcia, really didn't overexert himself in the fight, if you know what I mean. So I think that Mikey Garcia, I think he's going to be out to prove himself here. And I think he probably is going to be looking for the knockout, because he is going to want to prove that he's higher level than somebody like Jessie Vargas. And that could be dangerous, because Jessie Vargas, as I've mentioned, can be quite sneaky and quite powerful with his shots from the outside, and he does move quite well. He might even move a little bit better than Mikey. Mikey looks a bit stationary to me, but Mikey Garcia, doesn't really need to move that well because he's got that sort of center of gravity about him, where he's very fundamental, holds the center of the ring very well. Like, if you were to compare Mikey Garcia's fight against Adrian Broner, for example, compared to Jessie Vargas' fight against Adrian Broner, Mikey Garcia dominated every second of that fight, won pretty much every round against Broner using just basic boxing fundamentals, holding the center of the ring and outboxing him, behind a stiff jab and a good right hand, working him to the body and, piecing him up with combinations and just really outwitting and outboxing him. Whereas Jessie Vargas was going back and forth with Broner in a competitive fight. So I don't think that Jessie Vargas has the technical boxing skills that Mikey Garcia has. I think Mikey Garcia has better skills. I think Mikey Garcia is a bigger puncher, despite maybe being smaller naturally. I think Mikey Garcia is, he's definitely smaller. He's definitely shorter. I know that. But I think Mikey Garcia has more power from what I have seen from him. I think Mikey Garcia, just to me, is in a better stage of his career right now. He hasn't really had hasn't really taken the punishment that Jessie Vargas has taken, from what I have seen. Jessie Vargas appears to have been in more brawls, that took a lot out of him. And I don't know, it's a good fight to me. I think this is a fight that will be entertaining. It's a fight that I could see potentially going the distance. But if someone was to get like a devastating, brutal knockout, I think at this stage of their careers it would be Mikey Garcia. But, with having a size advantage, Jessie Vargas might have some success. He might be able to outbox Mikey from the outside, but I just have that Broner fight in the back of my mind. If he wasn't able to outbox Broner consistently, I can't see him consistently outboxing Mikey Garcia. I can't see him doing that. I can't see him pulling it off successfully. And it's a fight that I don't know, for whatever reason I'm looking forward to it. For whatever reason, I have a feeling that this fight might turn out to be one of the more surprisingly entertaining fights of this year. And it might, kick 2020 off in the sense that it might be one of them fights that surprises a lot of people. But if I'm being honest, my gut tells me that although Jessie Vargas may have some natural advantages like height and size, my gut tells me that Mikey Garcia, based on the fights of both of their careers that I've watched, because I've followed both of these guys for years, watched both of their careers for years, something's telling me that Mikey Garcia might just be technically too good, technically too skilled. And if it does turn into a boring fight and a very lame technical fight, Mikey Garcia will outbox Jessie Vargas. I think he's technically too skilled. Mikey Garcia, a lot of people don't like Mikey Garcia, and I have to agree, I'm not a fan of the guy. Don't really like his fans personally. A lot of them seem like very stuck up types. The way that they talk about the likes of Lomachenko and Pacquiao and whatnot. I think Mikey Garcia is a fighter who has been very opportunistic and has really picked his opponents. But against the half decent opponents he has fought, he's looked very good. I mean, against Robert Easter Jr., he dropped him and completely dominated him. Beat him up clearly. Against Sergey Lipinets. Now that was the fight that I wanted to talk about. I had that fight in my mind, because that's one of the reasons why I might give Jessie Vargas a slight chance. Because when Mikey Garcia fought Sergey Lipinets, I thought Mikey Garcia lost that fight, and those of you who saw my post-fight review will know that. And I've since watched that fight again, and watching it again, it was even more clear to me that Sergey Lipinets won that fight. And I know that a lot of people disagree. A lot of people think that it was a clear win for Mikey, and I just don't get that. Like, from what I saw in that fight, Sergey Lipinets completely outboxed and outlanded, outfought and outslicked Mikey Garcia, even though he was knocked down in the 7th round from a beautiful, well-placed left hook by Garcia, which is his best punch in my opinion, is left hook. I still thought that Lipinets clearly beat him, and that's one rematch I'd love to see at welterweight. Mikey Garcia against Sergey Lipinets, and I think Lipinets should have won the first fight in my opinion personally, and I do think he's a very underrated fighter, and I'd love to see that rematch personally. But Jessie Vargas, is he a better fighter than Lipinets? I don't know about that. He's definitely a lot more accomplished, a lot more experienced, but I just think that Lipinets to me was very surprising that night, and I don't think Mikey Garcia was expecting him to be as skilled as he was. But that is one fight I do have on my mind. That fight from Mikey Garcia was not his best performance, and I do have that fight on my mind when I think about this one. That certain things like just having a good quick jab and moving quite well around the ring can make the more stationary Garcia exert a little bit more energy than he's used to. But I just think that when I think about this one, again, look, I'm just thinking of both of these guys and their careers overall and fights I've watched of theirs in the past, and I just can't really bring myself to say that, that Mikey Garcia is going to get outboxed by Jessie Vargas. I mean, I think of Jessie Vargas' fight against Pacquiao, where, yeah, he was knocked down in the 2nd round, but he got up, and although he lost most of the rounds clearly, he was able to just sort of kid on to the judges like he was winning some of the rounds. Because if you remember rightly, the fight was scored very close. Like, one of the judges had Pacquiao winning by like 1 point, if I remember rightly, which was ridiculous. But yeah, he had him winning by 1 point and something like that. And it was just because Jessie Vargas moving around the ring, throws some flashy combinations, and that sometimes can surprise the judges ringside. And if you're fighting like that, some judges in America might see that type of showmanship and that type of flashy artwork in the ring, and sometimes it makes them think you're winning the rounds. And that was how I think he won some of the rounds in that fight. And I think that type of style could maybe confuse and bewilder Mikey Garcia a little bit, and could make this fight more competitive and interesting than it prior, to that would have been. But I still think, just based on the fights I've seen, basing it on the Broner performances and stuff like that, the fights I've seen of this guy's, I think that Mikey Garcia is just the better technically of the two. I really do, and I think he should win the fight. How do I think that it is going to go, though? Like, do I think it's going to be on points or a stoppage? Well, Jessie Vargas, to his credit, has never been stopped. Neither has Mikey Garcia. But Jessie Vargas, he's never been stopped, and he has fought big punchers. You know, like I said, he's fought Saddam Ali, who he beat. You know, he's fought Manny Pacquiao, who doesn't really usually stop guys these days, other than Matisse. But you know, he was down in that fight, but he never really came close to being stopped. Fought Timothy Bradley. Timothy Bradley, not really a world class big puncher, but you know, Timothy Bradley's more a guy who at world level would go the distance. So I don't really know if Jessie Vargas not being stopped is an indication of him having some crazy chin or some amazing defense, or maybe he just hasn't really fought any massive punches, because I can't really put my finger on any massive punches he's fought. I mean, who has he fought that's a massive puncher? What, Steve Forbes? I don't know. Like, I can't really think of any. Like Antonio DeMarco, was he a big puncher? And again, these are at, you know, these are against guys who have fought in lower divisions, and I don't think Jessie Vargas has really fought any massive, like, world class punchers. You know, Adrian Broner's not really a massive world class puncher, is he? So I don't think that Jessie Vargas is unstoppable. Like, I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that Mikey Garcia might stop him, but I don't think it's very likely. As for Mikey Garcia, well, you know, he has been down earlier in his career himself. I believe he was down. Was he not down when he fought? Was it Salido? I can't. No, it was Rocky Martinez. I think knocked him down. I might be wrong about that. If I remember rightly, I think it was Rocky Martinez. But you know, I'll have to look that up. But he definitely has been down before. I know that Garcia definitely has been down, and Garcia was down in lower divisions. But at higher divisions, he's shown a lot more durability to me. Like when he fought Errol Spence, when he fought Robert Easter, those guys landed a lot of shots on him here and there, and neither one of them was able to really hurt him, were they? I mean, you know, when he fought Broner again, I mean, he was actually physically more imposing than Broner. Even though Broner was the physically bigger guy, he seemed to me to be physically stronger. He was actually pushing Broner back a lot more. You know, he knocked out Zlaticanin, you know, that dude. You know, against Lipinets, he was never down, despite the fact that he got his nose busted and was getting pieced up at times. You know, Lipinets, again, not really a massive puncher, but my point is, none of these guys who were naturally bigger than Mikey were able to really seriously hurt him. So I can't see Jessie Vargas knocking him out, even though Jessie Vargas has shown some decent power. Personally, I can't see him knocking out. You know, I can't see him knocking out Mikey Garcia. I think this fight has a good chance of going the distance, and I think if it does, I'm going with Mikey Garcia to win on points. So if anyone gets the stoppage, I think it's more likely Garcia, but personally, I'm going to go with Mikey Garcia to win this fight by unanimous decision. So that's my final prediction, Mikey Garcia on points. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and God bless.